You're listening to This Week in America with Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us. Back with us on the program, an old friend, Deke Rivers, a retired architect who now lives in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. As a child, his family escaped from Estonia when the Red Army invaded in World War II. The Rivers family moved to Europe, then Australia, then Canada, eventually settling in the U.S. for 15 years, finally returning to Canada in 2012. Deke has traveled extensively around the world and circumnavigated the globe as an architect. And now as an author, well, he's written 20 books and got several more that he's working on. The newest book we're talking about on the program today is called The Architect. A young architect finds himself unexpectedly involved in murder, fraud, identity theft in the development industry in Los Angeles. Back with us on the program, Deke Rivers. Deke, great to have you back on the program. How you doing?
Thank you. Very good. Well, very good. Excellent.
Good. I'm so excited about talking about the architect, and because that's who you were, the architect. And a lot of your books draw from experiences that you had. How much of this is autobiographical? We've got the main character we'll talk about, Shane.
The main issues, I always worked for other architects, basically, and but I got involved with the recording studios that I did. I did independent, and I did them myself. But most of the time, I worked for other architects, so I never got to practice architecture as a single architect myself. I was always working for somebody else, and which was fine. I mean, the projects I worked on, I was in charge of, and I ran it almost completely like right. I was, practicing my own, but not quite the same. But the architect in this story is an independent. He's achieved the registration. He's out there, got his own practice going, and he's taken on projects and working on them. So it's sort of the epitome of what you want to do.
As you're leading into the book, you're talking about since the 60s, 70s, how American life has changed, and certainly in many cases not for the better. And fraud, computers, identity theft, some of the topics you're talking about. Talk about that. Was that from an observational standpoint through what you saw during a period after that, or was that something you developed for as a part of the storyline in the book?
Okay, the basic story of the developer in this book is a gentleman that is specializing in retirement villages and retirement homes where they're little groups of one bedroom, 2 bedroom sort of housing, but placed into a park-like setting where and it's geared up specifically for seniors. From 55 up, you can go into these things, but they had umpteen different financial packages, and what they did was they got you into the units, but when you passed away, you couldn't sell it yourself. The state always sold the house itself. And what they did, they held on to the final payout of the house for a period of 5 years to make up the difference in the financial package. So they were interesting packages, but it always allowed the people that were going in there at a relatively early age of 55 as a minimum, and they could live there quite comfortably, and then they had the extra money because they didn't have to pay the high price of the actual house itself. So, but what the developer in the storybook does, he tries to screw everybody because he's a womanizer and he spends the profits before the project is even completed. That's the problem with him.
Yeah, and then he really has to go and try to cover that and come up with the money, which leads him into crime and various. I don't want to give too much of it away, but he's got a lot of baggage that he's carrying as he's trying to keep this business going. It's all in the book, The Architect. The author, Deke Rivers, with us on the program. His website is DekeRiversBooks.com or DekeRiversAuthor.com. You can link on directly at our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and get to Deke's website. It's also, of course, available at Amazon. I talked about the lead character in the book, Shane, who is a young man who suddenly finds himself, his parents would die in a small plane crash, And he's basically overnight, he's a millionaire. He's got homes, he's got money, he's got cars, he's got women by extension. I mean, he really has himself set up for life.
Yeah, he does. And I guess it's part of a fantasy on my own part. But, these things happen, and life goes on. And some people are able to cope with it. Others just get lost and become undesirables, basically. But in this case, he's a straightforward kid who's been brought up in the traditional American way, and he's out there to help whoever he can. And in this case, he helps his old friend, who actually is somebody who's trying to take for a ride. And so he steps in and helps out with his architectural background and intelligence, and he's there to help anybody that needs help, and it works out well.
Yeah, it's interesting. After he comes into all of this money, he's still in school. He's still pursuing the architectural degree. In fact, when he's working on the thesis, he goes to this company, and they shut the door on him completely to the point where he thought something was amiss. So his radar was up from the beginning. And you got a number of characters in here. You've got basically a brothel and a madam that's involved in this, that's blackmailing people. You've got a lot of different elements in the story, don't you? It's not just one storyline you're going all the way through. You're off on several and tie them all together very nicely.
Well, that's what I try to do. Most of my stories, you'll find that there's always multiple stories within each story, and they all, everybody's a different character, and everybody's got their own, like you say, luggage to carry around and the baggage to carry around, and everybody is, every soul, every person that you ever meet has got a story, and that's what I'm trying to pull out in each case is give a little bit of background before the overall story sort of takes over, but somewhere in the background, people have hidden secrets, and you try to bring those up and make it a little bit more interesting, I guess, in a sense.
Well, and they are, because they all, just when you think maybe you understand, it's like, whoop, he took a turn that I didn't think he was going to. And let's talk about the character development before you write the story. Are these well-rounded characters, or do they evolve as you're writing the story, thinking, okay, I think I'm going to take Willard in this direction now?
Yeah, no, the basic storylines in my brain when I start off, but there are diversions without a doubt. And as I go along, I think of something that might add a little bit of extra flavor to the story, and I add those in, or deviate, or sometimes even go back and modify what I've written. And so I'm continually, as I go through the process of writing it, I'm continually editing the story itself, and the biggest and the hardest part I find is always is keeping the sequence correct. That the timelines of when things happen, and when you got 3 or 4 stories happening at once, you always have to sit down and actually I have pages and pages of notes where I'm just aligning the ages of people to make sure that they fit into the storyline.
Deke Rivers, our guest on This Week in America. Yes, and as you're reading, that's a benefit. When you read one of his books, and this book in particular is called The Architect, it makes sense. It follows in sequence. Sometimes you got people jumping around. You're thinking, I must have missed a chapter here because I don't quite understand how they got here from there. It all makes sense. The story unfolds very nicely. I want to talk, I mentioned in the beginning all of the places, not all, but many of the places that you've lived in your life. And I think we talked about it before, that as a displaced person, after you left Estonia in World War II, you basically started over, you and the family, 3 times. You've lived in Australia, Canada, the U.S., Philippines, Nantucket, Dallas, Las Vegas, Atlanta, Fairbanks. Could you have written these books without all of those places being in your history?
I really don't think so. Again, it's my own life story that I'm writing a book about that as well, but it's the sequencing, and it's the experiences that I lived through, and the characters that a lot of them are based on people that similar to that I have met over the years, but if I hadn't done all the traveling that I had done, I don't think I could have written any of the books themselves, because the whole thing is based on my, most of them are based on my experiences and things that have happened to me. And there's some, like I could spend hours talking about some of the situations that I encountered, and fortunately I'm still alive. So
yeah,
I'm a little.
It shows in the way your characters evolve, because as you're doing this, it's like, I'm thinking, of course I've been knowing the backstory, that you have seen probably so many people do so many things over the course of your life in so many different circumstances all around the world. That's sort of like a great reservoir to draw from with your characters.
Oh, absolutely. And at one stage, as an architect, we actually, the company that I was working with, another young millionaire at the time, and he was basically a developer or a lumber salesman, but his father owned a big lumber yard here in Toronto, and at one stage he hired me to sort of help. He had 23 different properties in the downtown core area of Toronto, and the council in Toronto arbitrarily got kicked out, and a group of radicals came in that wanted everybody to develop for the poor, basically.
Right.
And so they put a restriction on the downtown Toronto. You can't build anything higher than 45 feet, which just absolutely destroyed the whole downtown economy. And so we had a permit application in there, and we actually sued the city of Toronto on a mandamus action. and basically because they refused to issue us a building permit, and but we beat them. We beat the city.
Well, all those experiences, it makes such a great fodder for putting the books together and the stories. And there's so many, 20 that Deke has now. And he's working on some more that you'll find at his website. It's at DekeRiversBooks.com. That's DEKE Rivers, RIVERS, DekeRivers.com. Go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and you can link on directly. The book we're talking about specifically is The Architect. It's interesting, and you mentioned that you're working on a book that reflects on your career. As I'm reading your story and getting information on you, a couple of the stories jump out. I know you worked in Las Vegas at the Aladdin Hotel, building the showroom there. And it's interesting, as I'm reading this wasn't like a normal project and then it followed like the normal routine. What this really was an accelerated. They had a date for a show, and you had to be finished in time, and you basically worked around the clock.
It was an 8-month contract, and we did it in 4.
Wow.
We worked 3 shifts a day. I was on site probably 12 hours a day, no holidays, no nothing, just keep on going. And it was ironic because we had they were looking for a big star act to open the casino at the time, and Sting's manager came into town, and he took one look at our project, and he said, "You guys will never finish on time." So he booked Sting into the MGM, and but we did manage to pull it together, and we had an unbelievable contractor who put out, and I was acting almost like a builder myself, walking around with the various contractors and telling them to do certain things which I shouldn't have really been doing. But as an architect and as an expediter, basically, we worked together, and at the end of the when we did actually achieve the goal, we had our final approval 3 hours before the concert, before Enrique Iglesias walked on the stage. 3 hours before, the people were already lined up in the corridors waiting to get into the theater. We still didn't have our approval until 3 hours before. So
that's amazing.
Just a sort of time, let me tell you.
Yeah, imagine the pressure in Las Vegas you're under to finish, because there are multiple millions at stake for this project. Yeah. Another one that I found interesting was a hospital in Fairbanks, Alaska, dealing with darkness and cold. How difficult is it to stay on time and on a project like that when you've got all those variables?
You have endless conditions that depend on the weather. I mean, we had temperatures in the minus 40, 47, 48, 49, 50
Wow.
outside, and the inside temperature had to be 70. You know, our windows were like 4 panes of glass, all different dimensions with different gases in between. You know, it was a real experience in technology, basically, of being able to build. And the hospital's mandate was that in a 1,000-year event, which is earthquakes or hurricanes or whatever you want to call it, or extreme winter conditions, the hospital had to maintain its operation. And you know, it was a real experience. But I mean, we were on the job virtually around the clock, and the contractor and the Corps of Engineers that I worked with together and with the contractors, you know, we got it done, but it took a while. And, you know, I was there for almost 4 or 5 years.
Wow.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah,
but
I hope
the
those
experience. But the experience was great because I loved Alaska. That's where I sort of took a sideline, and I started becoming a wildlife artist. And I got like 40 or 50 art pieces that I produced in that period of time.
Yeah, Deke Rivers, our guest on the program, author, architect, artist, and poet. So a man of many talents. And it's interesting, the book covers say so much about I'm looking at the book cover for the architect, and I love that. Do you do the book covers?
I do most of them, not specifically myself, but I give them the ideas, right. I give them the photographs, and in 2 of my books, actually, my own art pieces are shown, like on the trail of the Caribou Trail, you'll find a head of a wolf, and what do you call it, the Outback Stockman. You'll find a painting I did of the Devil's Marbles in Australia when I was there, and so those 2 pieces are actually my own work. But usually what I do is I search the internet for an applicable picture, and then I ship it through to them, and then let them do the graphics and so on it. But I'm party to all the final outcomes. Yeah, absolutely.
Got a couple minutes left in the program. Deke Rivers, the author, is back with us on the program. Books available at DekeRiversBooks.com or DekeRiversAuthor.com. Specifically, we're talking about in the show today the book, The Architect. And as I read these books, and I did with The Architect, I can see this being a movie of some kind. Have you ever thought about taking this and maybe doing a feature with it?
Well, I'd like to. You know, but putting together a movie script becomes expensive, and I'm far from being a millionaire or a very wealthy individual at this point in time. And specifically, you know, with some of the things that have happened in my own personal life that have brought me short of funds in many ways. But listen, most of my stories would make fantastic movies. I know that, and
well, they would.
I have one book that I did manage to get a screenplay written for it, and it's in Hollywood right now. So people, I guess, are looking at it right now.
It's so relatable and it's so graphic as we're reading the books. And the books are, again, by our guest on the program, Deke Rivers. All the books you'll see listed at DekeRiversBooks.com. The Architect, the one that we focused on during the course of the program, it's a great read. It's highly relatable. You'll love the characters. You'll love the twists and turns along the way. It really is a job well done. And when are we going to see some new books? I know you're working on several that are pretty close to being ready for publication. Yeah,
I got one about an MI6 agent that covers everything from Mugambi in Zimbabwe, all the way up to the terrorists in Europe, and so that's one that I'm working on. Another one I'm working on lost treasures of the Vikings up in the Shetland Islands in northern England, and another one. What do I got?
You have so many.
Oh, yeah, a Western. I just almost finished my first Western.
You're all across the board of topics and time frames and that type of thing. We'll stay in touch with Deke, let you know when he's got new books coming out. And do you walk around with like a notebook all the time? So when you're thinking of something, you
I
can
always
write
have
it
a
down?
notebook with me. Yeah.
Somehow I figured that everything you see could trigger a story, so that and a good story at that. The new book is called The Architect. It's available at Deke's website, DekeRiversBooks.com, DekeRiversAuthor.com as well. Of course, available at Amazon, and you can link on directly our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and get information on The Architect and the other 19 books, soon to be more, that Deke has written. Deke, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us on the program.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Always
love talking to you.
Always, thank you. Same here. Always great to have you on the program. Deke Rivers, the website is DekeRiversBooks.com. The book we talked about in the program today, The Architect, and we're back after these messages.